And the second piece of reporting that I just want to talk a minute about involves this little study. You can see Rudolph W. Giuliani vulnerability study, prepared for Giuliani for New York, April 8th, 1993. Now, this study, I don't know, I've estimated it at 5 inches thick. Maybe I'm overstating it a bit, but this is a study that Rudy commissioned himself of his own weaknesses in the 1993 campaign. He hired 2 researchers, and these 2 researchers looked at every possible issue that might be raised by the Dinkins campaign against Rudy Giuliani. And it looked at his personal life, it looked at his public life, it looked at his roles in the Justice Department. And the purpose of the study is to identify the weaknesses and then to come up with a response. Well, Rudy didn't like what he read. So, just read to you from a page or 2 of the book about the vulnerability study. In anticipation that these issues might arise, the campaign's vulnerability study, which was authored by Chris Lyons at David Garth's suggestion, devoted a lengthy analysis to the possibility that, quote, the Dinkins campaign might leak negative personal information about Rudy Giuliani's first marriage to his cousin, Regina Peruggi. It said that the marriage and annulment raised, quote, questions about a weirdness factor afflicting Giuliani's personal life, close quote. The study reviewed what it described as Giuliani's, quote, wide array of conflicting answers about the marriage, which it said, quote, brings the soundness of his judgment into question and the veracity of his answers. A 5-page recapitulation of Rudy's answers to prior questions identified numerous inconsistencies and questionable circumstances about how long the 2 were married, whether Giuliani knew he was marrying his second cousin, whether he dated other women while still married, and ultimately how consistent he has been about his personal life. The study referred to Rudy's, quote, raucous social life during the Peruggi marriage, adding that the media saw the marriage itself as an extremely bizarre act. It recommended that Giuliani, quote, deflect as a shameless act of negative campaigning any attempt to question the legitimacy of Giuliani's first marriage or his fidelity. By assuming this, quote, personal defense strategy, the study concluded the campaign will find it exceedingly difficult to attack Dinkins with personal charges, which of course Rudy had tried to do in the 1989 campaign. Giuliani was so unnerved by this and other passages in the study that he had a campaign aide sit down at the computers of the 2 authors and erase it from their hard drives. The aide also confiscated discs. Copies were only given to Peter Powers, David Garth, and Giuliani, and it was never discussed again. Some of its analysis of Giuliani's weaknesses proved prophetic. In a section entitled Arrogance, the study reported that critics charge he, quote, doesn't listen to people, doesn't take advice, attacks critics, and is insensitive to those who do not share his position on an issue. It concluded that, quote, this charge is not without some justification. The review of, quote, ruthlessness, quote, after noting that he was viewed as the Machiavelli of the legal community, quote, found that there was, quote, lots of evidence demonstrating that as a federal prosecutor, he certainly pushed the envelope of the permissible. Rudy Giuliani, keep in mind, these are his own researchers writing this now. Rudy Giuliani has plenty of inoculating to do on several fronts, the authors wrote in the introduction, specifying his reputation for overzealousness, the reversal of his federal convictions, flip-flops, and the cop rally. This study is tough and hard-hitting. It is not intended to shock or offend, but to prepare the candidate and his staff for the kinds of no-holds-barred assault they should expect from the Dinkins camp. The third paragraph of the 5-inch thick bound volume, though, sounded its death knell. Rudy Giuliani was hardly prepared to look into a mirror that bared everything from his hairline to his eye roll. The readers of this vulnerability study are urged, the preface read, not to dismiss or take lightly any of the negatives discussed in this document. Taken together, the negative issues presented in this study offer a compelling argument against electing Giuliani mayor. Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't mention how I got that book. Yes, I was going to tell the tale of how I got that book. I'm not going to say any more than that the presumption was, Rudy presumed, that all copies of it had been destroyed. All I say in the introduction of the book is that someone handed me one on a highway, and I think I have the only copy left, because he tried to make a copy that night. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. It was upstate somewhere. Someone handed me a copy. He thought he knew about a 24-hour Xerox place. We went to it, but the 24-hour Xerox place was closed. So I think I may have the only copy left. Now some questions. Go ahead.